The day the aliens came was just like any other Tuesday in April. The sky was blue over Washington, D.C. when the massive ship appeared. It just hung there, blocking the sun like a metal cloud, casting shadows over the frightened people below. News channels around the world broke their regular shows. Everyone saw the same thing. A giant spaceship, dark and scary, with strange lights that blinked in patterns no one understood. Ethan Wright was eating lunch when his phone buzzed with an emergency alert. As National Security Advisor, he knew this would be bad. He grabbed his jacket and ran to his car. The president needed him now. At the White House, people ran in all directions. Phones rang everywhere. Military officers shouted orders. President Eleanor Reynolds sat at the head of the table in the Situation Room, her face serious and pale. "What do we know?" she asked as Ethan took his seat. General Peters pointed to the big screen. "The ship is about 3 miles long. It's not responding to any of our signals." Just then, every TV, radio, phone, and computer in the world showed the same image: a tall, strange creature with purple skin and 4 eyes. Its voice sounded like rocks being crushed. "People of Earth," it said, "I am Supreme Commander Zorthak of the Vraxian Empire. We have watched your planet for many cycles. The time has come to determine your worth. We demand your king face our champion in battle. This is our way. The victor's people will prosper. The losers will serve." The alien's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. "You have 3 of your Earth days to present your king. If you refuse, we will turn your cities to ash." The screen went black. The room was silent for 10 seconds before everyone started talking at once. President Reynolds raised her hand. The room fell quiet again. "Get me Dr. Alexandra Reeves," she said. Now, Dr. Reeves was the best xenolinguistics specialist in the country. She studied how aliens might communicate based on science and math. She was teaching a class when soldiers came to get her. 2 hours later, Alexandra sat in the White House, looking at recordings of the alien message. "They keep saying, 'King,'" Ethan said, "but we don't have a king. The United States has a president." Alexandra nodded slowly. "I think they don't understand our government. They seem to expect a single warrior ruler." "Like ancient times?" President Reynolds asked. "Exactly," Alexandra said. "Based on their language patterns and demands, the Vraxians probably have a society built on combat and physical strength. Their leaders likely earned their positions by defeating others." General Peters laughed without humor. "So they want us to send our strongest person to fight their champion, like some kind of gladiator match." "That appears to be correct," Alexandra said. "And they seem to think our leader is also our strongest warrior." Ethan paced the room. "This is crazy. We can't just send the president to fight some alien monster." "Of course not," President Reynolds said. "But we need to buy time. The United Nations is calling an emergency meeting. All world leaders will be there in 10 hours. Alexandra studied the alien message again. "There's something else here," she said. "The way they speak about honor and combat. I think there might be rules they follow. If we can learn those rules, maybe we can find a way out of this." Outside, people filled the streets. Some prayed. Some cried. Others packed their cars and tried to leave the cities, though no one knew where would be safe. In his apartment, William Will Harding watched the news with a beer in his hand. The former Marine and fighting champion felt a strange feeling in his stomach. Something told him his quiet life in Montana was about to end. As night fell, the alien ship turned on massive lights that shined down on major cities. The message was clear. They were watching, and they were waiting. In the White House, President Reynolds made a decision. "Get me the best actors, fighters, and military strategists we have," she told Ethan. "If these aliens want a king, we'll give them one. But on our terms." The clock was ticking. Earth had less than 72 hours to find a way to survive. The United Nations building in New York was surrounded by police and military. Inside, world leaders argued loudly. Some wanted to fight the aliens with weapons. others wanted to run and hide. A few even suggested sending their actual leaders to battle. President Reynolds stood at the podium. "We need a plan that gives us time," she said. "Dr. Reeves has new information about these Vraxians." Alexandra walked to the front of the room. Her hands shook slightly as she held her notes. She had not slept in 30 hours. "We've intercepted and translated more Vraxian communications," she said. "Their entire society is based on combat and strength. Leaders earn their positions by defeating others in ritual fights. They literally cannot understand a society that doesn't work this way." The room grew quiet as everyone thought about this. "They expect our king to be our strongest warrior," Alexandra continued. "In their culture, the concepts of ruler and champion are the same thing." The Chinese president leaned forward. "So we send our best fighter and call him a king." "That's what I'm suggesting," President Reynolds said. "We need to speak their language, not just with words, but with cultural understanding." The plan they called Operation Royal Gambit was approved after 3 more hours of debate. Earth would pretend to have a king, while secretly preparing their real champion. Back in Washington, Ethan Wright met with a small team in a basement office. They needed to find 2 people, someone to play the role of king and someone who could actually fight. "For our fake king, we need someone believable," Ethan said. "Someone with presence, who can act the part." Agent Samantha Carter slid a file across the table. "Gerald Bennett, former Shakespearean actor. He played kings and emperors for 30 years. He's retired now, but still in good shape for his age." Ethan looked at the photo of the dignified man with silver hair and a commanding face. "Perfect. Get him here quietly." "And for our actual fighter?" asked Lieutenant Kevin Okafor. Agent Carter pulled out another file. "William Harding, ex-Marine, former MMA champion, undefeated in 27 professional fights before he quit 5 years ago. Lives alone in Montana now." "Why did he quit?" Ethan asked. "Personal reasons," Carter said. "His file is mostly classified, but he served in special operations. He knows how to fight and how to win." Kevin studied Will's photo. "Will he help us?" "He might not have a choice," Ethan said. "The world doesn't have a choice." That evening, 2 black SUVs drove up a dirt road in Montana. Will Harding watched them approach from his porch. He had been expecting them. The agents asked him to come with them. Will refused. He had left that life behind. His phone rang. It was his sister Grace, an astrobiologist at NASA. "Will," she said, her voice tight with worry, "I've been studying the Vraxian ship. If they attack, nothing will survive. Nothing. We need you." Will closed his eyes. "I swore I was done fighting." "This isn't about fighting," Grace said. "It's about surviving. All of us." After a long silence, Will packed a small bag and got in the SUV. Meanwhile, in New York, Gerald Bennett was brought to a secure hotel. The elderly actor was excited to play the most important role of his life, Earth's fake king. "This is like Shakespeare," he told the agents as they showed him royal clothes designed by top costume makers. "Deception and drama on the biggest stage possible." In secret labs, scientists studied every image of the Vraxians, trying to understand their biology, their weaknesses. Military strategists developed fighting techniques based on what little they knew. The public was told that diplomatic talks were happening, but in truth, Earth was preparing for a single combat that would determine everyone's fate. On the alien ship, Supreme Commander Zorthak watched Earth's cities through giant screens. His 4 eyes blinked as he spoke to his second-in-command. "The humans are confusing," Zorthak said. "Their communications suggest many leaders, not one. How can a species survive with no clear dominant warrior?" "Perhaps they hide their true nature," the second-in-command suggested. "We will see when their king faces Kivoth." Zorthak made a sound like grinding metal, which was Vraxian laughter. "No one has ever survived against Kivoth. This world will join the others in service to the Empire." As night fell again, Humanity's two champions prepared in different ways. Gerald practiced royal speeches and kingly walks. Will began intense physical training, pushing his body to its limits once more. The clock continued to count down. Earth had less than 48 hours left. Will Harding woke up in a military base somewhere underground. The room was plain with just a bed, a desk, and a small bathroom. His body ached from yesterday's training. He had not pushed himself this hard in years. There was a knock at the door. Grace, his sister, walked in with coffee and a tablet. "How are you feeling?" she asked. Will stretched his sore muscles. "Like I'm too old for this." Grace smiled, but her eyes were worried. "We've learned more about the Vraxians," she said, showing him the tablet. "Their planet has higher gravity than Earth. They're stronger than humans, with thicker skin that's almost like armor." Will looked at the blurry images of the aliens. "So I'm supposed to fight one of these things?" "Not just anyone," Grace said. "Their champion, Kavoth. We intercepted communications about him. He's never lost a fight." Will drank his coffee. "Great." But Grace continued, "We think humans might have some advantages. Vraxians are strong, but they move slower than us. Their joints don't have our flexibility. And they seem to fight in very predictable patterns." Will nodded. "They've never had to adapt. If you always win with strength, you never develop skill." A team of trainers arrived to work with Will. They included martial arts experts, military combat specialists, and scientists who understood alien biology. Will trained for hours, focusing on speed and unpredictable movements. Meanwhile, Gerald Bennett was enjoying his role as Earth's fake king. He sat in a luxurious room, being fitted for royal clothes. "How do kings walk?" he asked the military advisor assigned to him. "Like they own everything they see," the advisor said. Gerald practiced walking with his head high and his shoulders back. He memorized a speech written by the best speechwriters in government. In the White House, President Reynolds met with world leaders on secure video calls. Some countries wanted to try fighting the aliens with weapons. Scientists warned this would fail. The Vraxian ship had technology far beyond Earth's. Dr. Alexandra Reeves worked day and night studying Vraxian language and culture. She learned their society had no concept of voting or shared leadership. Every position was earned through combat or other contests of strength. "They literally cannot understand democracy," she told Ethan Wright. "To them, a leader who hasn't personally defeated all challengers is not legitimate." Ethan looked tired. He hadn't slept in days. "So they'll only respect someone who can beat them at their own game." "Exactly," Alexandra said. "And there's something else. These combat rituals always end in death. The loser dies." Ethan's face went pale. "Does Will know this?" "Not yet," Alexandra admitted. "We're afraid he might back out." In his training room, Will fought against 3 opponents at once. He moved like water, using their strength against them. Even after years away from fighting, his body remembered. But deep inside, memories of war haunted him. The faces of those he had fought, the sounds of battle, the weight of taking lives. During a break, Grace brought him water. "You're holding back," she said. Will looked away. "I swore I'd never kill again." Grace touched his arm. "I know what happened in the war," she said softly. "But this is different. This is about saving everyone." Will closed his eyes. "Is it? Or am I just being used as a weapon again?" "You're being given a choice," Grace said. "That's what makes humans different. We choose our path, even when it's hard." In a secure TV studio, Gerald practiced his first worldwide address as King Gerald I of Earth. He would appear the next day, showing the aliens that Earth had a ruler ready to meet their champion. News stations were told to prepare for an important announcement. People around the world waited nervously, watching the alien ship that still hung in the sky. Agent Samantha Carter discovered more about Kavoth through intercepted communications. She brought the information to Ethan. "Kavoth isn't just their champion," she said. He's genetically engineered for combat. His pain receptors are removed. His blood clots instantly. He's literally made for killing. Ethan's face showed the weight of what they were asking Will to do. Can any human beat something like that? Samantha had no answer. That night, Will sat alone in his room, thinking about what was coming. On his tablet, he watched videos of people around the world, families in parks, children playing, ordinary life continuing under the shadow of the alien ship. Will made his decision. He would fight, not because he was ordered to, but because it was his choice to protect those people. If he died trying, at least he died for something that mattered. The next morning, King Gerald I of Earth prepared for his first appearance. The world held its breath, unaware of the true plan. They had 24 hours left before the Vraxians demanded their champion. The world watched as Gerald Bennett, now called King Gerald I of Earth, appeared on television. He wore a crown made by Hollywood prop designers and a royal blue uniform with gold buttons. He sat on a throne with flags of many nations behind him. Gerald looked directly into the camera, his voice deep and strong. People of Earth, and our visitors from the stars, I am King Gerald, ruler of this world. I have heard the challenge of the Vraxian Empire, and I accept. Across the globe, people stared at screens in confusion. Most countries didn't have kings. Many had never heard of this man. But the message continued. For thousands of years, humans have chosen champions to defend our honor. I will meet your warrior as tradition demands. Earth will not bow to threats. Earth will not surrender without proving its worth. On the Vraxian ship, Supreme Commander Zorthak watched with his 4 eyes blinking in sequence. The human's words were translated into his language. He made a sound of satisfaction. The human king shows proper spirit, he told his officers. Prepare the combat area. In one day, Kavoth will add another world to our empire. Back in the secret base, we'll watch Gerald's speech on a small screen. The actor was convincing, his royal manner perfect. Will continued his training, now focusing on Vraxian weak points. Their neck joints had less protection. Their lower eyes had poorer vision. Their balance was different from humans because of their homeworld's gravity. Lieutenant Kevin Okafor brought Will new information. The Vraxians have agreed to hold the combat on Earth, he said. They're sending down a shuttle tomorrow. They want to fight in an open area where people can watch. Will nodded. They want witnesses. This is a show of power for them. The president has chosen a location in Switzerland, Kevin said. Neutral ground, a large field surrounded by mountains. In another part of the base, Agent Samantha Carter discovered something alarming. She rushed to find Ethan Wright. I've translated more of their communications, she said, her face pale. The Vraxians have done this before. 17 other planets. They always demand combat with the local ruler. They always win. Ethan's stomach tightened. What happens to the planets that lose? They become labor worlds, Samantha said. The people aren't killed, but they lose all freedom. They mine resources for the Vraxian Empire until nothing is left. This information was shared with only the highest officials. The public was told that diplomatic progress was being made. Meanwhile, construction crews in Switzerland worked through the night to build a viewing area for the combat. Dr. Alexandra Reeves studied more Vraxian communications and found something interesting. They have strict rules about their combat rituals, she told Ethan. It's not just fighting. There are specific protocols. Can we use that? Ethan asked. Maybe, Alexandra said. I need more time. Time was running out. In his private room, Gerald practiced regal movements and memorized more speeches. He had no idea what would happen after his public appearance as king. In his training room, Will fought against Special Forces soldiers who used techniques designed to mimic Vraxian movements. Will was faster, more adaptive, but still human. The soldiers were holding back. Kavoth would not. Grace brought Will dinner and sat with him while he ate. The scientists have developed something that might help, she said, showing him a small device. It's a targeted sound wave emitter. Vraxian hearing is sensitive to certain frequencies. This might disorient Kvoth for a few seconds in an emergency. Will looked at the small device. No, he said. If I use tricks, the Vraxians might claim we cheated. This has to be fair, or it means nothing. Grace wanted to argue, but saw the determination in her brother's face. Will had his own sense of honor. That night, as most of the world slept under the shadow of the alien ship, someone inside the government leaked information to the press. The story spread quickly across the internet. Earth's king is a fake. Government plans deception against aliens. By morning, people everywhere knew that Gerald was an actor. They learned about the real plan to have a fighter face the alien champion. Some were angry about the deception. Others understood the desperate strategy. Ethan Wright was woken at 4 a.m. with the news of the leak. He rushed to the White House where President Reynolds was already meeting with her crisis team. The Vraxians will know soon, if they don't already, Ethan said. Then we failed, the president said, her voice tired. We have 12 hours until the combat deadline. No one in the room had any answers. The plan had always been risky. Now it seemed doomed. But outside, something unexpected was happening. People were gathering in cities around the world. They weren't panicking. They weren't hiding. They were organizing. In New York, thousands marched toward the United Nations building where Gerald was staying. News cameras followed them. They carried signs that read, "No Fidelity Kings," and "Earth decides its own champion." The crowd wasn't angry. They were determined. They had a plan of their own. As the sun rose on what might be humanity's last free day, the world prepared to show the watching aliens something they never expected to see. The crowd outside the United Nations building grew larger by the hour. People from all walks of life joined together. They were not violent, but they were loud and determined. News helicopters flew overhead, broadcasting the scene to the world. Inside, Gerald Bennett watched the gathering crowd with concern. Security guards stood at his door, unsure what to do. "They know I'm a fake," Gerald said to his handlers. "The plan has failed." Agent Carter's phone rang. It was Ethan Wright. "Turn on the news," he said. "Something strange is happening." On TV screens around the world, the crowd in New York began to move in unison. They formed a pathway from the UN building's front doors to the street. People held up their phones, recording everything. Suddenly, the crowd's chant became clear. "Bring out the false king. Bring out the false king." In the White House Situation Room, President Reynolds and her team watched in confusion. This wasn't mass panic. It was organized. Dr. Alexandra Reeves studied the scene carefully. "They're putting on a show," she said suddenly. "For the aliens, they're showing the Vraxians how humans handle false leaders." Ethan's eyes widened as he understood. "They're helping us. They're making our deception look planned." On social media, hashtags spread explaining the idea. History professors shared stories of ancient kings who were removed when they failed their people. Actors explained the dramatic potential of the moment. Military veterans discussed how this might impress the warrior-minded aliens. President Reynolds made a quick decision. Get Gerald on board with this. Tell him it's his final and most important performance. In Switzerland, workers finished building the combat arena. Will Harding arrived by helicopter, kept out of sight. He watched news coverage of the growing crowd in New York. "Your sister's on the phone," Kevin told him, handing over a secure line. "Will, are you seeing this?" Grace asked excitedly. The people figured it out. They're creating a story the Vraxians might understand, rejecting a leader who tried to trick them. We'll watch the screen. So instead of our government's plan failing, it looks like our whole society is following Vraxian rules, removing an unworthy leader. Exactly, Grace said. And if the Vraxians believe that's how humans work, they might accept a new champion chosen by the people. At the United Nations, Gerald was briefed on the new plan. The actor smiled. A dramatic public fall from power. It's the role of a lifetime. He straightened his fake royal uniform and prepared for his exit. Security arranged for him to be captured by the crowd in a way that looked dramatic but kept him safe. On the Vraxian ship, Supreme Commander Zorthak and his officers watched the human broadcasts with great interest. Their news sources say their king tried to avoid combat through trickery. The communications officer reported. The people are removing him from power, as is proper. Zorthak's 4 eyes blinked rapidly. Fascinating. Perhaps we underestimated these humans. They understand the basic principles of worthy leadership after all. Down in New York, the doors of the UN building opened. Gerald walked out, still wearing his crown and royal clothes. The crowd booed and shouted. Gerald played his part perfectly, looking afraid but trying to maintain dignity. As planned, people rushed forward, surrounding him. They pulled off his crown and tore at his royal clothes. Gerald pretended to fight back, then surrendered as he was led down the steps. The crowd parted to form a path. People on either side pointed and shouted as Gerald was marched through the street. Some threw paper cups and harmless trash. News cameras followed every step, broadcasting to the world and to the watching aliens. President Reynolds addressed the Vraxians through a direct communication link. Supreme Commander, as you can see, we do not tolerate false leaders. The man who claimed to be our king has been rejected by our people. He will face punishment for his deception. There was a long silence before Zorthak responded. Your species follows the natural order after all. This pleases us. Who then will face our champion? The president looked directly into the camera. Our people will choose a true champion, one who fights by choice, not by birth or claim to power. In cities worldwide, people continued the performance. They gathered in parks and squares, pretending to debate who should represent Earth. In reality, everything had been arranged through social media and news programs. Everyone played their part in the show for alien eyes. Will watched all this from Switzerland. For the first time since the aliens arrived, he felt hope. Humans were doing what they did best, adapting, cooperating, telling stories that shaped reality. It's time, Kevin told him. The president is about to announce Earth's true champion. On screens around the world, President Reynolds stood before the United Nations, people of Earth, and honored visitors from the Vraxian Empire. Our society has removed the false king who tried to trick you. Now we present our true champion, William Harding. He fights not because he is our ruler, but because he is chosen by the people to represent our world's strength. The screen showed Will stepping out of a helicopter in Switzerland. The crowd there cheered as if they had selected him themselves. On the Vraxian ship, Zorthak watched with confusion and interest. Their ways are strange, he told his officers, but they have provided a champion as required. Prepare Kavoth for combat. In New York, Gerald was taken to a secure location, his part in the drama complete. He smiled at Agent Carter. Did I play my role well? Perfectly, she said. You might have helped save the world. As night fell over Switzerland, Will stood alone at the edge of the combat arena. Tomorrow, he would face Kavoth, a genetically engineered killing machine from across the stars. But tonight, for the first time, Will felt he wasn't fighting alone. Billions of people had come together to create this moment. Humanity had shown its true strength wasn't in kings or champions, but in its ability to work together. In his room, Will looked at a message from his sister. Remember, you're not just fighting for us. You're showing them who we really are. The final hours before combat ticked away. Earth's fate would be decided when the sun rose. Morning came to Switzerland with a red sunrise. The mountains looked like they were on fire. People filled the viewing areas around the combat arena. Millions more watched on screens around the world. Will Harding stood in a small tent, stretching his muscles. He wore simple black clothes that allowed him to move freely. No armor, no weapons. Those were the rules. Grace came to see him one last time. The Vraxian shuttle landed, she said. Kavoth is here. Will nodded, his face calm. How does he look? Big, Grace said. Almost 8 feet tall. 4 arms. His skin is like purple armor. Will kept stretching. Weak points. The same ones we studied. Joints. Lower eyes. Balance. Grace touched her brother's arm. Will, you don't have to do this. Will looked at her. Yes, I do. Outside, thousands of cameras recorded as the Vraxian champion walked into the arena. Kavoth was massive, with muscles like rocks under his purple skin. His 4 arms ended in clawed hands. His 4 eyes scanned the crowd, showing no emotion. Supreme Commander Zorthak arrived with 6 guards. They stood on a raised platform at one side of the arena. Zorthak's voice boomed through translators. People of Earth, today your world's fate will be decided. Your champion against ours. The combat ends when one cannot continue. There is no surrender. On the other side of the arena, President Reynolds and world leaders watched from a similar platform. Dr. Alexandra Reeves sat with them, still studying Vraxian communication patterns. There's something important in their combat ritual, she whispered to Ethan Wright. Something we're missing. Ethan looked at the alien champion. Let's hope Will can hold his own long enough for us to figure it out. The crowd grew quiet as Will walked into the arena. Next to the massive Kavoth, he looked small and fragile. But he moved with confidence, his eyes never leaving his opponent. A Vraxian officer explained the rules. No weapons, no outside help. The combat would continue until one fighter could not continue. Kavoth looked down at Will with all 4 eyes. Your world will serve the Empire well, he said through a translator. His voice sounded like grinding stones. Will said nothing. He centered himself, remembered his training. A loud horn sounded. The combat began. Kavoth moved faster than expected for his size. All 4 arms swung at Will, who ducked and rolled away. The crowd gasped. Will circled his opponent, looking for openings. Kavoth followed, always facing him, always advancing. The alien's movements were strong but predictable, just as the training had suggested. Will darted in, landing a quick strike to Kavoth's knee joint, then jumped back before the counterattack could land. Kavoth made a hissing sound but showed no pain. He has no pain receptors, Grace had told Will. You can't hurt him in the normal way. Will kept moving, using his speed. Kavoth followed, his massive arms swinging like clubs. One blow would be enough to end the fight, and Will's life. In the viewing area, Dr. Reeves watched the Vraxian officers. They spoke to each other in their language, commenting on the fight. Their translator devices were off, thinking humans couldn't understand them. But Alexandra could. Not perfectly, but enough to catch important words. They're surprised, she told Ethan. They're saying Will fights without proper form. They expected formal combat techniques. On the battlefield, Kavoth grew frustrated. Will wouldn't stand and fight directly. The human kept moving, striking weak points, then retreating. It wasn't how warriors fought on Vrax. Stand and face me, Kavoth demanded. Will didn't answer. He couldn't waste breath on words. Every move, every breath mattered. 20 minutes passed. Will was tiring, but Kavoth was slowing too. The alien champion wasn't used to extended combat. His opponents usually fell quickly to his superior strength. Will saw his opening. He feinted left, then darted right as Kavoth committed to the wrong direction. Will landed a precise strike to the alien's inner knee joint, where the armor-like skin was thinner. Kavoth's leg buckled. He dropped to one knee, using his lower arms to support himself. The crowd roared. But the advantage was brief. As Will moved in, Kavoth caught him with an upper arm. The blow sent Will flying across the arena. He landed hard. The air knocked from his lungs. Kavoth rose and advanced. Will struggled to his feet, blood trickling from his mouth. His ribs screamed in pain. Something was broken inside. The alien champion raised all 4 arms for a finishing blow. Will couldn't move fast enough to escape. In that moment, Will remembered something Grace had said. Vraxians evolved on a high-gravity world. They always expect to be pulled down. Will didn't try to escape. He moved toward Kivov, ducking under the swinging arms. Using the alien's momentum, Will grabbed one arm and pulled, adding his weight to the motion. Kivov, already off balance from his injured knee, toppled forward. Will rolled away as the massive alien crashed to the ground. Before Kivov could rise, Will was on his back. He struck precisely at the base of the alien's skull, where the nerve bundle was closest to the surface. Kivov's forearms flailed. Will held on, continuing to strike the same spot. The alien champion tried to stand, but his limbs weren't responding properly. For the first time, the Vraxians watching showed emotion. They hadn't expected this. Their champion never lost. Kivov made one final effort. He rolled, crushing Will beneath his massive weight. The human gasped in pain, but didn't release his hold. He kept striking the nerve center. Finally, Kivov went still. His arms dropped to his sides. His four eyes blinked rapidly, but he couldn't move his body. Will dragged himself free, barely able to stand. Blood ran from cuts on his face. He could only breathe in short gasps. The arena was completely silent. Humans and Vraxians alike watched in shock. Will stood over the fallen Kivov. By Vraxian tradition, this was the moment to kill his opponent. That's how their combat always ended. Instead, Will extended his hand to the defeated alien. "It's over," he said, "but you don't have to die." Kivov stared at Will's hand in confusion. This wasn't part of combat as he understood it. Supreme Commander Zorthak stood up. "Finish him," he ordered Will. "That is our way." Will turned to face the Vraxian leader. Though exhausted and injured, he spoke clearly. "But it's not our way. On Earth, true strength includes mercy." Dr. Reeves translated Will's words for the Vraxians. The alien officers looked at each other in confusion. This concept didn't exist in their language or culture. Will remained standing, his hand still extended to Kivov. "We choose," he said. "That's what makes us human. We can choose to end violence when it's no longer needed." A murmur went through the crowd. Humans understood. The Vraxians did not. But they did understand something else. Their champion had lost. For the first time in their history, the Vraxian Empire had failed to conquer a world through combat. Supreme Commander Zorthak stared at Will for a long time. Then he spoke words that surprised everyone. "The combat is complete. Earth has proven its strength." The world held its breath, waiting to learn its fate. Supreme Commander Zorthak stood at the edge of the combat arena. His four eyes studied Will, who still stood over the fallen Kivov. The human was badly injured but remained standing through sheer will. "Your champion has won," Zorthak said finally. "This has never happened before." The crowd was silent, waiting. World leaders leaned forward in their seats. "What happens now?" President Reynolds asked. Zorthak made a sound like grinding metal. "Now we must understand what this means. Our way has always been clear. The strong rule. The weak serve." Will could barely stand, but he spoke clearly. "There are different kinds of strength." Medical teams waited at the edge of the arena, but no one moved. This moment was too important. Kivov remained on the ground, unable to move his body below the neck. The nerve strike had paralyzed him temporarily. He looked at Will with confusion in his four eyes. "Why didn't you kill me?" he asked. Will knelt beside the fallen champion, wincing in pain as he moved. "Because I didn't need to." The fight was over. Dr. Alexander Reeves translated the exchange for the Vraxian officers. They spoke rapidly in their own language, trying to understand this strange concept. Alexandra listened carefully, then turned to Ethan Wright. "This is changing everything," she whispered. "Their entire society is based on combat to the death. They've never seen mercy before." On the Vraxian ship in orbit, officers watched the events unfold. They sent messages to their homeworld, describing the unexpected outcome. Will finally allowed medical teams to approach. Grace ran to her brother, helping him onto a stretcher. "You did it," she said, tears in her eyes. Will shook his head slightly. "Not yet. It's not over until they leave." Vraxian medics attended to Kivov, lifting his massive body with special equipment. The alien champion's eyes never left Will as they carried him away. President Reynolds approached Supreme Commander Zorthak. "Your champion fought with honor," she said, "and our champion showed there can be honor without death." Zorthak's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. This outcome was unexpected. We must consider what it means. The Vraxian commander returned to his shuttle with his officers. The Earth leaders gathered in a secure room to wait. In the medical tent, doctors examined Will's injuries. 3 broken ribs, internal bleeding, a fractured wrist, cuts and bruises everywhere. But he would live. "Did we win?" Will asked Grace, his voice weak. "We don't know yet," she said, holding his hand. "The Vraxians are discussing what to do." Hours passed. The crowd in the viewing area remained, refusing to leave until they knew Earth's fate. News channels showed people gathered in cities worldwide, watching and waiting. As evening approached, the Vraxian shuttle returned to the command ship. Earth's leaders feared the worst. Perhaps the aliens would attack despite their champion's defeat. But as night fell, a message came from the ship. Supreme Commander Zorthak requested to address the people of Earth. On screens around the world, the alien commander appeared. His expression was unreadable to human eyes. "People of Earth," he began. "For thousands of years, the Vraxian Empire has expanded through combat. The strong rule. The weak serve. This is the natural order." People held their breath, fearing what would come next. Today, for the first time, our champion was defeated. "By your laws, we should leave your world in peace." There was a pause. No one dared to celebrate yet. "But we have seen something we do not understand," Zorthak continued. "Your champion showed what you call mercy. He did not kill when he could have. We have never seen this before." In the medical tent, Will watched the broadcast on a small screen. Grace stood beside him, squeezing his hand. "In 17 conquered worlds, no one has defeated our champions. No one has shown this mercy," Zorthak said. "It seems there are kinds of strength we have not known." The commander's 4 eyes blinked slowly. "The Vraxian Empire will honor the combat. Earth will remain free. But we wish to learn more about humans. Not as conquerors, but as—" He seemed to search for a word. "As students." A cheer went up around the world. Earth was safe. Humanity had survived its first contact with an alien civilization. In the weeks that followed, Will recovered from his injuries. Kivov also recovered, though he would never fight again. The nerve damage was permanent. The Vraxian ship remained in orbit, but smaller vessels came down for diplomatic meetings. They were learning about human culture, human values, human strengths. Kivov asked to meet Will again. The 2 champions sat across from each other in a quiet room. "On my world, I would be dead now," Kivov said. "A warrior who cannot fight has no place." Will shook his head. "That's not how it works here. Your worth isn't just in your ability to fight." Kivov's 4 eyes blinked in confusion. "What other worth is there?" "Knowledge. Experience. Wisdom," Will said. "You've seen more worlds than any human. You know things we could never know. That has value." The alien was silent for a long time. "This is why you won," he said finally. "Not because you were stronger, but because you see strength where we see only weakness." Will smiled slightly. "Maybe that's humanity's real superpower. We've been the weaker species for most of our history. Smaller than bears, slower than wolves, softer than turtles. We had to find strength in other places." Kivov nodded slowly. "I will learn this. My people will learn this." As summer turned to fall, the Vraxian ship prepared to leave Earth. Not to conquer other worlds, but to return home with new ideas. Earth had changed them in ways they were still discovering. Before they left, Supreme Commander Zorthak made one final broadcast to Earth. "We came seeking to conquer," he said. "We leave having been conquered, not by weapons or warriors, but by ideas we had never imagined. You have shown us there are many forms of strength. This knowledge will change the Vraxian Empire forever." In his cabin in Montana, Will watched the alien ship grow smaller in the sky until it was just another star. Grace sat beside him on the porch. "Do you think they'll really change?" she asked. Will looked up at the night sky, now full of possibilities rather than threats. "I don't know, but they've seen another way now. They can choose. Like humans do," Grace said. Will nodded. "Exactly. And in the end, that's what makes us strong." The alien ship disappeared from view, leaving Earth to continue its journey among the stars, not as conquerors or the conquered, but as teachers of a strength that comes not from dominance, but from choice, mercy, and the courage to see value in difference. 5 years passed since the day Will Harding faced Kavoth in combat. Earth had changed in ways no one could have predicted. The United Nations created a new department called the Interstellar Relations Council. Dr. Alexandra Reeves led it, using her knowledge of Vraxian language and culture. Countries that once fought each other now worked together, preparing humanity for its place among the stars. Will lived quietly in his cabin in Montana most of the time. He didn't want fame or awards. But today was different. Today he had agreed to speak at the 5-year anniversary of First Contact Day. Grace drove her brother to the ceremony in Geneva. The same city where the combat had taken place now hosted a beautiful garden and memorial. "Nervous?" Grace asked as they approached the venue. Will looked out the window. "A little. I'm not good at speeches." The crowd was huge. People from every country had come to celebrate. Children wore T-shirts with pictures of stars and spaceships. Adults spoke excitedly about the latest news from the Vraxian homeworld. President Reynolds, now in her second term, greeted Will warmly. "The man of the hour," she said. "We couldn't have done this without you." Will shook his head. "It wasn't just me. It was everyone. The scientists, the people who played along with the fake king plan. Even Gerald." Gerald Bennett stood nearby, smiling. The actor had become famous for his role as the false king, and now taught drama at a prestigious university. He waved at Will. Ethan Wright was there too, now the Secretary of State. "The first Vraxian ambassador arrives next month," he told Will. "They've chosen someone special for the role." Will raised his eyebrows. "Who?" Ethan smiled. "You'll see." The ceremony began with music and speeches. Leaders talked about how humanity had faced its greatest challenge and found strength in cooperation and compassion. Scientists described the technologies shared by the Vraxians that had improved medicine and energy production. When it was Will's turn to speak, he walked slowly to the podium. His old injuries still bothered him sometimes, especially in cold weather. "I'm not good with words," he began. "I was asked to talk about courage today. But the real courage wasn't in fighting an alien champion." Will looked out at the crowd. Real courage was when ordinary people around the world decided to work together. When they dragged a fake king through the streets to show the aliens that humans choose their own path. When everyone played their part in a story bigger than themselves. As Will spoke, a small ship appeared in the sky above the ceremony. It descended slowly, landing on a special pad nearby. The crowd murmured with excitement. "We've learned so much in these 5 years," Will continued. "The Vraxians have shared their technology. We've shared our music, our art, our ideas about freedom and choice." The door of the small ship opened. A ramp extended to the ground. "The strength the Vraxians respected wasn't physical power," Will said. "It was our ability to adapt, to work together, to show mercy." A figure appeared at the ship's door, large and purple-skinned, but moving with the help of a mechanical device. Kavoth, the former champion, made his way down the ramp. Will smiled and finished his speech. "Today we welcome the first Vraxian ambassador to Earth, someone who has learned our ways just as we've learned theirs, someone who once was an enemy but now comes as a friend." The crowd cheered as Kavoth approached the stage. His body was still damaged from the fight, but his eyes showed a new kind of strength. He carried a ceremonial staff with symbols of both worlds. "Humans of Earth," Kavoth said, his voice now translated perfectly by a small device. "5 years ago, I came to your world as a conqueror. Today I return as a student and a friend." Will stepped forward and extended his hand. Kavoth took it, and the two former opponents stood together as equals. "The Vraxian Empire has changed," Kavoth announced. "We no longer seek to conquer, we seek to learn. 17 worlds that once served us are now free, inspired by Earth's example." People in the crowd wiped away tears. This was more than they had hoped for. "Will Harding did not just defeat me in combat," Kavoth continued. "He defeated an idea. The idea that strength comes only from domination. Now we know better." After the ceremony, Will and Kavoth walked through the memorial garden together. They stopped at a simple stone that marked the exact spot where they had fought. "Do you ever wish you had killed me?" Kavoth asked. "It would have been your right by combat." Will shook his head. "Never. That victory would have been empty." Kavoth nodded. "I have studied human history since our battle. Your people have not always shown mercy to each other. No, Will admitted, we've made many mistakes. We've been cruel and destructive. But we learn. We change. We choose to be better. That is what my people now strive to do," Kavoth said. "To choose. It is a strange concept for us, but a powerful one." That evening, a dinner was held for world leaders and the Vraxian delegation. Will sat between Grace and Kavoth. Scientists and diplomats asked questions about the latest developments on Vrax and the other formerly conquered worlds. "The transition has not been easy," Kavoth admitted. "Some resist change, but most have embraced new possibilities." Later, Will stepped outside for some air. The stars shone brightly above, each one possibly home to other civilizations. President Reynolds joined him. "Thinking about what's out there?" she asked. Will nodded. "And what we'll show them when we meet. The Vraxians say there are more aggressive species than them," the president said. "Some may not be as open to learning new ways." "Then we'll have to be ready," Will said. "Not just with weapons, but with ideas. Those were always our best tools anyway." As the celebration continued inside, news arrived from deep space monitoring stations. 3 new ships had been detected at the edge of the solar system. Not Vraxian. Something else entirely. Kavoth studied the data with Earth's scientists. "I do not recognize this configuration," he said. "But my people will stand with yours, whatever comes." Will looked up at the night sky again. Humanity's first challenge had been met with courage and compassion. The next one would find Earth changed but ready. "We'll face it together," Will said, and for the first time since the Vraxians arrived, he felt not just hope but certainty. Humanity had found its greatest strength, not in false kings or mighty champions, but in the power to choose mercy over vengeance, cooperation over conflict. Whatever waited beyond the stars would meet a humanity united by that understanding, and in that unity was a power greater than any weapon, any ship, any empire could ever command. Grace smiled at her brother, seeing the peace in his eyes. "Ready for the next adventure?" she asked. Will nodded. "Always." Above them, the stars seemed to shine a little brighter, as if welcoming Earth to its new place in the universe.